Hi everyone, it's Fiona WildSnake coming to you from the Moon Lodge, and I wanted to talk to you about Lammas, which is coming up at the end of January. It's the first of the harvest festivals, and it's the next Sabbath that we'll be celebrating in the Moon Lodge with a women's circle. Most people don't know what Lammas is. It's actually the midpoint between Summer Solstice and Autumn Equinox, and I've got my little map here again to show you where it sits and to explain to you what it's about. So here we have our cycle, and so far this year we began at Winter Solstice, and we celebrated Imbolc, which was in August, which is all about planting our seeds and our metaphorical seeds of intent about what we want to create in our lives, as well as the garden and planting what we need for then preparing the soil. Then we have Spring Equinox, which is the midpoint where we have equal day and equal night, and there's a lot of planting that goes here in the garden and metaphorical seeds that we might want to create for this whole cycle. We also come up and we had Beltane, which is in November. So these are the three spring festivals as we rise up and as the days become longer and longer and longer. And then we have Summer Solstice, which we've just had at Christmas time, and this is the most intense time. This is when the days are longer, there's lots of celebrations, there's a fullness in the air, there's heat, we had a lot of fires. When you're putting your cycle of life over this wheel, this is the time of motherhood, which where you have like loads of responsibilities, lots of jobs to do, different things pulling you in different directions. And so there's like a peak time that we've just experienced up here. And we're now coming down. This is like the longest day of the year, and this is the shortest day of the year down at Winter Solstice. We're just about to move down, or we have moved off this point, and we're just about to hit Lammas, which is this one here, this celebration, and it's the exact midpoint between Summer Solstice and Autumn Equinox. And Lammas actually comes originally from the words Lammas, and that's because it was traditionally celebrating the first harvest, or what is harvested first, which is wheat. And so it marks the last harvest day for the wheat, and it's celebrated because whatever we planted here at this part of the wheel must fruit at this part of the wheel or give us a crop. Otherwise, traditionally, we wouldn't actually get through winter. So we actually need to create all of the food that we need to get through this point of the wheel here, which means planting is super important, and harvesting is what we're into now. So this is the first of the harvest festivals. And when we're looking at using the women's wheel for our life as women, we're really looking for it not just as how we work in the garden, but how we work our life. So what we're going to be looking at here is what is starting to come into fruition. What are we starting to harvest and see in our lives that has had itself planted as an intention down here? And it's even if we weren't even realising that we were planting seeds of intent down here. So if you think back to what were you doing in August, September, October last year, what were you doing back then that you might be able to see fruits of your labour starting to come about here? And it might even be something that you've been working on in your relationship. It might be communication. It might be something in your work. It might be a new project. I've got so much going on inside of me. For me, this point here marked a really big stepping back in my work, where I had to pull back from my one-on-one appointments so that I could really focus on some internal growth. I guess it was a deep dive into the underworld for me to look at my own baggage, what I've been carrying, and to reap the gold from that. So this time for me was a really deep processes of exploration. And what I'm seeing now as the first of my harvests is actually a feeling of my new offerings and what's going to be coming forwards and how that's going to look. And there's still a lot that has to come through this wheel as I journey with this and work out exactly what it's going to look like. But I can start to see it now that we're coming up to Lammas. And this is also a point where we have an opportunity to give thanks in what is in our lives. And that's thankful for our families, our homes, our communities, the fact that we do have food on the table. So it's a point of pause. So if you're thinking, if you put a clock on top of this, and this was midnight at the bottom here, and then you came up and you had 3 a.m, 6 a.m, 9 a.m, and midday. This would be 3 p.m, and then this would be 6 p.m. Now, at 3 p.m. in the afternoon, you're winding down, and there's a pause. So you're either, it's basically sort of have a snooze or have a cup of tea, because you've got to get through the rest of the day. So it's the time when it's just before school pickup. So you just have a little bit of a pause, and for me, I like to sneak in a 20-minute nap if I can, because that really gets me through to this next part of the evening at 6 o'clock, which is when you have lots to do, dinner time, kids are home, you're trying to get ready for the next day, and you're trying to clean up from this day. So this is all about sort of finishing things off, looking, you've got a small amount of opportunity left to get things done in the day. And so at the circle, we're going to be really focusing on this time of giving thanks, and looking around us and seeing, looking at our harvest. What have we harvested? What are we starting to see harvest come to us? I mean, in my garden, I've got some basil, I've got the very, very first tomatoes, I've got some sweet corn, lettuce, but there's lots of things like my pumpkins, most of my tomatoes, eggplants, lots of things, watermelon, they're just still growing. They're still at their first beginning stages. So looking at what can we be thankful, acknowledging the farmers of what they do to actually provide food for us, and having a pause. So we're going to be working with a very deep relaxation technique that I'll be teaching you, that you can do on yourself and on your family, or mostly on each other with your family. And it's an energy-based technique that I use in clinic. So you'll be doing that on each other while we are in circle, and also sharing a meal, giving thanks for what has been coming into our lives